But champions don't become champions in the ring. They're merely recognized there. What makes them champions happens long before the lights come on. You see, everybody wants the glory. Everybody wants the bill. But very few are willing to train their mind like a champion. You think it's about talent. You think it's about genetics. No, it's about mental dominance. Every champion you admire didn't just train their body. They trained their mind first. They made a decision, a commitment, a mindset that said, I will not be outworked. I will not be outfocused. I will not be broken. Discipline over feelings. That's where the battle starts. And that's where the war is won. Most people are led by their feelings. They wake up and decide how their day's going to go based on how they feel. Let me tell you something. Champions don't operate like that. Champions don't need to feel like it. Champions don't need motivation. They don't need a perfect environment. Champions train their minds to follow through regardless of how they feel. And when you can train your mind to obey your vision instead of your emotions, you become unstoppable. See, your feelings are unreliable. They shift like the wind. Some days you wake up and feel like you can conquer the world. Other days you feel like hiding under the covers and disappearing. But that's why discipline is everything. Discipline says, I don't care how I feel, I have a job to do. Discipline says, I committed to this goal, and my commitment means more than my comfort. Champions wake up at 4 a.m., not because it's easy, but because they made a promise to themselves, and discipline makes sure they keep it. Feelings are the reason most people start strong and finish weak. They're the reason why most gym memberships gather dust. They're the reason why dreams die quietly in people's minds. Because the moment it gets hard, the moment it gets uncomfortable, the moment it stops being fun, people back out. But champions, they lean in. They train for discomfort. They expect resistance. They know that if it were easy, everyone would be doing it. But only a few are willing to push through when it hurts, when it's cold, when it's lonely, when there's no applause. That's discipline. You ever hear someone say, I just didn't feel like doing it today? That right there is the language of defeat. That's the vocabulary of mediocrity. And the problem is, we've gotten too used to treating feelings like they're facts. Just because you feel tired doesn't mean you are tired. Just because you feel discouraged doesn't mean you're done. Your mind is powerful enough to override any emotion, but you gotta train it. You gotta condition it to serve your mission, not sabotage it. Let's take it deeper. Discipline is not just about routines or schedule. It's about identity. It's about who you are. A champion doesn't go to the gym because it's January 1st. A champion doesn't study because the exam is tomorrow. A champion trains, learns, grows, and grinds because it's who they are. Discipline becomes part of your DNA. When you train your mind like a champion, you start to feel wrong when you miss a day. You feel off when you don't execute. Why? Because you're no longer negotiating with your feeling. You build an identity around execution. And I know what you're thinking, Eric. What if I mess up? What if I lose discipline for a day? Listen to me, champions aren't perfect. They're persistent. You fall off. You miss a rep. You skip a step. Cool. You get up. You refocus. You recommit. The power of discipline isn't that it makes you flawless. It's that it gives you bounce back. It trains your mind to say, that was yesterday. Today I grind. No pity party. No guilt trip. Just action. Discipline doesn't dwell, it decides. Here's what separates the great from the good. Great people don't wait for motivation. They create momentum first, and the feelings follow. You might not feel like writing the book, but once you start typing, the energy kicks in. You might not feel like hitting the gym, but once you start that first set, the adrenaline hits. That's what discipline does. It initiates movement in the absence of motivation. Discipline also protects your dream. Everybody wants the outcome, but not everybody wants the structure. You want the six-pack, but you don't want to eat clean. You want the business, but you don't want to wake up early. You want the spotlight, but you don't want the sacrifice. That's why discipline is rare. It demands that you deny yourself. And in a world addicted to instant gratification, discipline is the antidote. It tells you I can have this now, but I'm going to delay it because I'm after something bigger. Let me give it to you real. The road to greatness is boring. It's repetitive. It's lonely. It's early mornings and late nights. It's doing the same thing over and over while no one is watching. But that's where the transformation happens. That's where champions are built. And every time you choose discipline over feeling, you're making a deposit into your destiny. Let me tell you what else discipline does. It silences excuses. When your mind is trained to follow through, it no longer gives you permission to lie to yourself. No more, I'll do it tomorrow. No more, I'm not in the mood. Discipline says, you said you do it, so do it. And when your mind knows you mean business, when it knows you don't negotiate with weakness, it starts showing up for you in ways you never imagined. Your confidence grows, your focus sharpens, your results multiply. Your results multiply. You don't rise to the level of your potential, you fall to the level of your training. So if your training is weak, if your discipline is soft, don't expect championship results. You've got to train your mind the way an athlete trains their body, with precision, repetition, and intensity. Every day you show up when you don't feel like it, you're building mental muscle. Every time you push past comfort, you're reinforcing strength. And one day when life is hard, and it will, your mind will be ready because it's been through the fire, because it's been trained. So I'll say it one more time for the people in the back. Discipline over feeling. Every single time. Your feelings are valid, but they're not in charge. Your vision is, your mission is, your purpose is. Train your mind to obey that purpose and watch what happens. Watch how your life transforms. Watch how people start calling you different, not because you got lucky, but because you out-disciplined them, because you out-focused them, because you stopped living by emotion and started living by execution. Train your mind like a champion. Start today, start now. No more excuses. No more waiting for motivation. Get up, show up, and never let your feelings run your life again. You can't put garbage in your mind and expect gold to come out. That's just the truth. What you feed your mind is what will eventually show up in your actions, in your emotions, and your results. Champions understand that mental diet is just as important as physical diet. You can eat clean every day, lift all the weights you want, run all the miles. But if you're constantly feeding your mind negativity, laziness, distractions, and toxicity, then eventually that mental junk will show up in your performance. And it's not just what you read or watch. It's who you talk to, what you listen to, what you think about. Every single thing you allow into your mental space is either fuel or poison. Champions are extremely intentional about what they allow into their mind. They guard their mental space like a fortress. They don't entertain gossip. They don't scroll endlessly on social media comparing their lives to other people. They don't waste hours watching things that don't grow them. Every second is accounted for. Every input is filtered because they understand that what you consume consistently is what you will become. And if you're not careful, you'll let the world feed your mind all kinds of garbage. Fear, doubt, insecurity, hopelessness. And before you know it, your mindset is poisoned. Your focus is gone. And your dream is slipping away. You gotta train your mind like an athlete trains for the Olympics. That means you gotta be disciplined about what you let in. That means asking yourself every day, is this feeding my future? Is this growing me? Is this building me up or breaking me down? And if it's not building you, cut it, unfollow it, block it, walk away. I don't care how popular it is. I don't care how entertaining it is. If it's poisoning your mind, it's stealing your potential. Let's get real. Most people are living in mental poverty because they're consuming mental trash. They're binge watching drama. They're listening to negative people. They're having conversations with dream killers. They're drowning their minds in low vibration energy all day and then wondering why they can't focus, why they feel anxious, why they keep procrastinating. It's because you trained your mind to operate in chaos instead of clarity. You've allowed garbage to take up space where vision should be. You've allowed noise to replace purpose. Champions are different. Champions feed their minds with greatness. They wake up and put positivity in first. They read books that challenge their thinking. They watch videos that fire them up. They surround themselves with people who sharpen them. They write down their goals. They speak affirmations. They meditate. They pray. They protect their peace. Every single day, they are feeding their minds the nutrients it needs to win. Because they understand you are what you consume. Garbage in, garbage out. Greatness in, greatness out. Think about it like this. Your mind is like a garden. If you don't intentionally plant good seeds of purpose, confidence, focus, and faith, then weeds will grow by default. And those weeds look like doubt, fear, laziness, excuses. But if you water that garden every day with intentional inputs, it becomes fertile. It grows fruit. It becomes powerful. But it all depends on what you feed it. That's why the champions don't wait for motivation to show up. They create an environment that produces motivation. That's why they don't just go to the gym. They listen to audiobooks. They recite affirmations. They journal their progress. They feed their minds while they train their bodies. And you've got to make a decision. You've got to decide what kind of content, what kind of energy, what kind of people are allowed in your space. Because if you let anyone drop anything into your mind, you'll be mentally cluttered and emotionally drained. Champions keep their mental environment clean. They declutter, they unsubscribe, they detox, because they know that clarity is a superpower. And clarity only comes when you eliminate the noise. You've also got to realize that your mind is always listening. Every time you say, I can't, your mind believes it. Every time you say, I'm tired, your mind agrees. Every time you say, this is too hard, your mind starts looking for reasons to quit. But the opposite is true too. When you say, I've got this, your mind starts finding solutions. When you say, I'm built for this, your mind activates your resilience. Your words are feeding your mind every second. So you better speak life, not death. You better speak faith, not fear. And I'm not just talking about positive thinking, I'm talking strategic input. Champions don't just think positive. They build mental frameworks that train their minds for resilience, focus, and growth. They use affirmations, yes, but they back it with action. They visualize success, yes, but they also consume knowledge, study their craft, learn from failure. They're constantly feeding their minds with the tools needed to perform at the highest level. That's how you train your mind like a champion. You also have to limit exposure to negativity, not just from strangers, but sometimes from family and friends. It's hard, but it's necessary. Because some people will never understand your dream. Some people will always operate in fear. And if you keep letting their opinions shape your mindset, you'll start shrinking your vision just to make them comfortable. Don't do it. You weren't called to live average. You weren't created to fit in. You've got to feed your mind with faith, not fear. With vision, not limitation. With possibility, not excuses. Let me be clear. This is a daily process. It's not once a week. It's not once a month. You gotta feed your mind every single day because the world is trying to poison it every single day. The news, the algorithm, the opinions, they're all trying to distract you, discourage you, derail you. So you've got to be more committed to your mental growth than the world is to your mental destruction. Start your day with power. Before you check your phone, check your mind. Before you scroll social media, scroll your goals. Before you let the world in, let purpose in. Watch what you consume. Be mindful of who's speaking into your life. Choose content that aligns with your future, not your past. Choose people who speak life into you, not those who drain you. Choose conversations that elevate you, not ones that pull you back into small thinking. Because here's the truth. Your external results will never exceed your internal input. You can't outperform your mindset. You can't outwork a mental diet that's filled with trash. You want excellence, then feed your mind excellence. You want purpose, then consume purpose. You want to walk like a champion, then think like a champion. Feed your mind what it needs, not what it craves. That's how transformation happens. That's how elevation begins. That's how you go from good to great, from dreamer to doer, from average to champion. Train your mind like your life depends on it, because it does. The first battle is with your alarm clock. That might sound simple, but it's the most underrated, most overlooked war in the life of a champion. Before you ever step into the ring, into the boardroom, onto the field, or into your craft, the first decision you make each day determines the tone of your entire life. That alarm clock doesn't just represent a wake-up call, it represents a commitment. A commitment to your vision, to your discipline, to your standard. When you win that first battle, when you dominate the morning, you don't just take control of the day, you take control of your destiny. Too many people start the day reacting The alarm goes off, and the first thing they do is hit the snooze button. Right there, before the day even begins, they've chosen comfort over commitment. They've told their dream, oh, wait a little longer. They've shown the world that their feelings are more powerful than their future. Champion, they're wired differently. Champions jump up. Champions wake up with intention. They don't wait for the day to happen to them. They command the day. They set the tone. They lead with energy, purpose, and structure. That's how they win. Not by accident, not by chance, by choice. You see, the way you start is often the way you finish. If you start the morning with confusion, you'll carry that chaos into every decision. If you start with doubt, you'll question every move. But if you start with clarity, with structure, with fire, you carry that momentum with you. That's why dominating the morning is about more than waking up early. It's about creating a morning culture. Champions build morning routines that prepare the mind, body, and spirit to compete. They don't just roll out of bed and hope for greatness. They build it step by step, habit by habit. Let me be clear. It's not about what time you wake up. It's about what you do with your time once you're up. You can wake up at 4 a.m. and still waste your life. But a champion wakes up and gets to work, they pray, they meditate, they read, they reflect, they visualize, they affirm, they exercise, they plan. Before most people have even opened their eyes, a champion has already taken steps toward the dream. They've already won. They've already shown up. And because of that, the rest of the day becomes a continuation of victory, not a search for motivation. The morning is sacred. It's quiet. It's peaceful. There are no distractions, no emails, no texts, no noise. That's the perfect time to build yourself. That's the perfect time to get grounded, to get focused. Lock in on what matters. Champions don't waste those hours. They use them as their foundation. That morning discipline creates mental sharpness, emotional stability, and spiritual clarity. It prepares them for the battles of the day. Because life will throw punches. Life will get chaotic. But when you've trained your mind and dominated your morning, you don't panic, you pivot. You don't fold, you fight. But let's get real. Winning in the morning isn't easy. There will be days when you're exhausted. Days when your body wants rest. Days when your mind wants comfort. That's when you must remember discipline is greater than desire. Champions don't wait to feel ready. They get up anyway. They move anyway. They grind anyway. Because they understand that discipline in the morning creates freedom in the future. Every time you win that battle with the alarm clock, you're telling yourself, I run this. You're proving to your brain that you're in charge, that your vision is more powerful than your mood. And the more you do it, the more your brain adapts. The more your body aligns. The more your actions become second nature. That's how habits are formed, through consistent repetition, not occasional inspiration. A champion doesn't dominate the morning once a week. It's daily. It's non-negotiable. It's part of who they are. They don't need an occasion. They build a lifestyle, a system, a mindset that says, if I win this morning, I'll win the meeting. I'll win the workout. I'll win the moment. I'll win the mission. There's something psychological too about dominating your morning. It gives you a feeling of ownership. You don't walk into your day feeling behind. You feeling behind. You don't feel anxious. You feel prepared. You don't feel reactive. You feel in control. That mental edge is a game changer. While others are dragging themselves into the day, you're sprinting. You're focused. You're sharp. That's why champions never hit snooze. The snooze is a symbol. It's a silent agreement to delay your greatness. It's a compromise with comfort. Champions don't compromise, they commit. And it's not just about productivity, it's about identity. Every time you wake up early and follow through on your routine, you're reinforcing a powerful self-image. I am disciplined. I am focused. I am consistent. I'm unstoppable. That identity fuels your belief, and belief fuels your results. So dominating the morning doesn't just impact what you do. It impacts who you become. And when you become a person who shows up, day after day, rain or shine, with intention and purpose, you become dangerous in the best way. You become unshakable. Let me ask you, what does your morning say about your commitment? Are you waking up and reacting, or are you rising and executing? Are you dragging through the first few hours, or are you using that time to build momentum? Because I promise you, your results are directly tied to your morning routine. Success doesn't start at 10 a.m. in the office. It starts at 5 a.m. in the silence. That's where the real work happens. That's where champions are built. And I don't want you to think this is just about being busy. It's not about waking up early just to be tired. It's about being strategic, about waking up with intention, about creating space for growth, for gratitude, for focus. Even 30 minutes in the morning spent in reflection, planning, and execution can change your whole life. It's not about how much time, it's about what you do with that time. A powerful morning leads to a productive day. A productive day leads to consistent progress. And consistent progress leads to greatness. But here's the part most people miss. The way you wake up affects how you sleep. When you have purpose in the morning, you go to bed with peace. You don't stay up scrolling. You don't waste hours in distractions. You rest because you know you've earned the next day. You go to bed like a champion, and you rise like one. That cycle becomes a rhythm, and that rhythm becomes a legacy. So remember, the first battle is with your alarm clock. And every morning you have two choices. Hit snooze and keep dreaming, or get up and chase the dream. One choice leads to mediocrity, the other to mastery. One is about comfort, the other is about calling. And only one will get you to where you're supposed to be. Dominate the morning, win the day. Do it until it becomes your default, until it becomes your weapon, until it becomes who you are. That's how champions are made. Not in the spotlight, not under the lights, but in the dark, in the early hours, when no one's watching, when it's just you, your alarm clock, and your commitment. Win that battle, and everything else becomes possible. Winners don't waste mental energy on what they can't change. That's one of the greatest differences between those who succeed and those who stay stuck. Champions understand this truth at their core. They know that energy is their currency, and they're not about to spend it on things that don't serve their mission. They train their minds to focus only on what they can control. Their attitude, their effort, their response, their work ethic, everything else, noise, distraction. Wait, and they drop that weight without hesitation. Most people live in a state of mental exhaustion, not because of what they're doing, but because of what they're thinking about. They spend their days replaying things they can't control. What someone else said, what went wrong yesterday, what might go wrong tomorrow, what people think about them, why they weren't chosen, why life isn't fair. That kind of thinking is draining, it's toxic. It pulls your mind into the past or projects it into a fearful future. And all the while, your present moment, this only moment you have power in, is slipping away. Champions are present. They are locked in. They are focused on the now. And it's not because their lives are perfect. It's because they've made a decision to stop feeding energy to things that are outside their reach. They know they can't control the weather, so they train in the rain. They know they can't control the market, so they master their strategy. They know they can't control who doubts them, so they sharpen their belief. Every thought, every ounce of focus is directed at what they can do, not what they can't change. Let me tell you why this matters so much. When you spend your energy on uncontrollables, you weaken your power over what is within your grasp. You get distracted. You lose momentum. You become reactive instead of proactive. You start living life like a victim instead of a victor. But when you train your mind to zoom in on your own actions, on your own responses, on your own habits, that's where transformation happens. Because that's where real control lives. It takes mental discipline to live this way. It's not automatic. Our natural instincts are to worry, to react, to defend, to replay. That's why you have to train your mind. You have to catch those thoughts when they come and redirect them. You have to say, I know I'm not thinking about that today. That's outside of my control, and I refuse to give it space in my mind. Then that's not denial. That's focus. That's strength. That's the mindset of a champion. Champions are strategic about where they invest their mental band. You won't catch them arguing about things that don't matter. You won't catch them obsessing over social media opinions. You won't catch them stuck in regret. Why? Because they know time is limited, energy is limited, and every moment spent on something meaningless is a moment stolen from their purpose. Take a look at the people who perform at the highest level. Elite athletes, world-class entrepreneurs, elite soldiers. You'll find a common thread. They are emotionally steady, Not because they don't feel things, but because they've trained their minds to stay calm in chaos. They don't freak out when things go sideways. They assess. They adapt. They act. They don't waste time pointing fingers. They take ownership. They don't dwell on what went wrong. They focus on what's next. That's what makes them lethal. That's what makes them consistent. That's what makes them champions. And let's be honest, life is going to test you. There will be delays, failures, heartbreak, betrayal, setbacks. That's not a maybe, it's a guarantee. But what separates the champion from the average is the response. The average person complains. The champion corrects. The average person blames. The champion builds. The average person sits in the storm. The champion moves through it. Why? Because they've made a decision not to hand over their power to circumstances they can't control. Think about how much more peace you would have if you stopped worrying about the things you can't change. Think about how much more energy you'd have for your goals, your grind, your growth. If you stop giving it to every problem, every negative person, every external distraction. This isn't just a mindset, it's a way of living. It's a system of power. And once you master it, you become emotionally bulletproof. Not because life stops hurting, but because you stop carrying things that aren't yours to carry. Champions also understand the power of acceptance. They don't fight reality, they flow with it. They adjust, they evolve. They take the L, they learn the lesson, and they keep moving. They don't waste time wishing things were different. They adapt to what is. That's strength, that's mental agility, and that's exactly why they stay ahead. While others are stuck wishing, hoping, and blaming, champions are working. They're solving, they're progressing, they're growing. And the more you practice this, stronger your mental muscles become. At first, it's hard. You'll want to react. You'll want to control everything. But over time, you'll start to notice a shift. You'll feel lighter. You'll think clearer. You'll move faster. You'll stop overanalyzing and start executing. Because now you're focused only on what you can influence. That focus is a superpower. It's what gives champions the edge. One of the most powerful things you can ever do for your life is to release what's out of your hand. Let go of the need to fix people. Let go of the need to understand everything. Let go of the need for everyone to agree with you. Let go of the fear of the unknown. You don't need to know everything. You just need to master your role. You just need to be excellent at your job, at your focus, at your process. That's what champions do. They narrow their vision so they can dominate their mission. So next time life throws you a curveball, pause and ask yourself, is this within my control? If the answer is no, let it go. If the answer is yes, then handle it. But stop wasting time in the middle. That's where most people get stuck, in the drama, in the what ifs, in the why me's. Champions don't have time for that. Champions live in decision. Champions live in execution. Champions live in power. Your mind is your greatest tool, but only if you learn how to manage it. Only if you stop letting every little thing take up space in your head. Only if you stop feeding fear and start feeding focus. The moment you realize that 90% of what's stressing you out isn't even in your control, that's the moment you take your power back. That's when you move differently. That's when you live differently. You don't need perfect circumstances. You don't need everyone to support you. You don't need the weather, the economy, or the algorithm to be in your favor. You need to control what you can. You need to show up every day and give your best with what you got. That's the path of a champion. That's how you win, not someday, but every day. So train your mind to stop wasting energy on what you can't change. Start directing that energy toward what you can build, what you can improve, what you can own. That's where your power is. That's where your peace is. That's where your greatness lives. The world's already loud. Don't let the enemy live in your head rent-free. That's a powerful truth to hold on to, because the battle you face every day isn't just outside of you. It's inside your mind. The noise of the world is constant. Opinions, criticisms, doubts, fear, distractions, and negativity. But the loudest voice, the most dangerous voice, is often the one inside your own head. The enemy doesn't have to shout from the outside when it has a megaphone inside you. And if you don't learn to take control of that inner dialogue, if you don't learn to talk to yourself like a warrior, you'll never reach the level of success you're capable of. Your mind is your battlefield, and the words you say to yourself are your weapons. If you allow negative self-talk to live in your head rent-free, it will break you down, distract you, and defeat you before you even start. Doubt, fear, insecurity, and limiting beliefs are the enemy's tools. They whisper lies that keep you stuck in fear, hesitation, and self-sabotage. You're not good enough. You'll never make it. Who do you think you are? Those lies can become so loud and so convincing that you start believing them more than your own dream. But here's the truth. You have the power to change the channel. You have the power to control the conversation inside your head. You have the power to refuse to pay rent to the enemy. This starts with awareness. You gotta catch the negative thoughts the moment they come. You gotta recognize the lies and refuse to entertain them. You have to become a vigilant guardian of your mind. When the enemy tries to sneak in, you say, not today. You refuse to engage. You don't give them space or permission to grow. Talking to yourself like a warrior means speaking life over your dreams, your abilities, your future. It means using your words as affirmations of strength, resilience, and faith. It means silencing doubt with declaration. Instead of I can't, say I will. Instead of I'm afraid, say I'm prepared. Say I'm prepared. Instead of I'm weak, say I'm powerful. Your words are not just sounds. They shape your identity, your mindset, and ultimately your reality. The warrior inside you grows or shrinks based on how you talk to yourself. This isn't about blind optimism or ignoring reality. It's about choosing to speak truths that empower you, that align with your purpose. It's about building a mental fortress so strong that negativity bounces off like water on armor. Every champion you admire has had to learn this skill. They've had to master their inner voice so they could stay focused, confident, and unstoppable, even when the world tried to tell them otherwise. One of the most dangerous lies the enemy tells is that you're alone in your struggles, that no one else faces doubt or fear. But the truth is, every champion has wrestled with the voice inside their head. The difference is that champions don't let their voice run the show. They fight back with courage, faith, and persistence. They replace every I'm not enough all with I am more than enough. They remind themselves daily that failure is a lesson, not a verdict. They give themselves grace, but never permission to quit. Your mind is like a garden, and your words are the seeds you plant. If you plant seeds of negativity, doubt, and fear, your mind will grow weeds that choke your potential. But if you plant seeds of encouragement, strength, and belief, your mind will flourish with confidence and clarity. It takes intentional effort every day. You have to water the seeds of positivity by reading uplifting books, listening to motivating speeches, surrounding yourself with supportive people, and practicing gratitude. You have to uproot the weeds of negativity by rejecting destructive thoughts and replacing them with empowering truths. Silence is not your friend here. You can't just hope the negative voices go away on their own. You have to actively confront them. When you feel that inner critic creeping in, speak up louder, shout louder, remind yourself of your worth, your potential, your progress. Write down your victories and review them often. Use your own voice as a weapon of encouragement. Become your own biggest supporter and your fiercest warrior. Remember, the enemy's goal is to keep you distracted and divided. When your mind is at war internally, it's harder to focus externally. But when you take control of your inner dialogue, you create peace and clarity. You free your mind to work on your goals, to solve problems, to innovate, to create. You unleash the power of a focused mind, a calm spirit, and a warrior's heart. It's also important to recognize that sometimes the noise comes from outside, from toxic relationships, negative environments, or social media overwhelm. In those cases, talking to yourself like a warrior means setting boundaries. It means protecting your mental space by limiting exposure to negativity. It means cutting ties when necessary. You don't have to engage in every argument. You don't have to absorb every criticism. You don't have to be anyone's punching bag. Protect your mind like the treasure it is. The process of mastering your inner voice takes time and practice. It won't happen overnight. There will be days when the enemy gets loud and the negative thoughts feel overwhelming. But every time you choose to respond with warrior words, every time you refuse to give in, you strengthen your mental muscles. You build resilience. You grow your confidence. And you move one step closer to the champion you're meant to be. So start today. Become aware of the conversations happening inside your head. Listen carefully. When you hear doubt, speak faith. When you hear fear, speak courage. When you hear I can't, speak a watch me. Make your mind your strongest ally, not your worst enemy. Because the most important battle you'll ever fight is the one within. And the champion who wins that battle will never be defeated. Don't let the enemy live in your head free. Take your power back. Talk to yourself like a warrior. Speak life, strength, and victory into your mind every day. That's how you build a champion's mindset. That's how you conquer the impossible. That's how you become unstoppable. When it comes to training your mind like a champion, one of the most critical aspects is mastering self-discipline. Self-discipline is the bridge between where you are right now and where you want to be. It's the quiet force that pushes you to act even when you don't feel like it. Champions are not just made in the heat of competition. They are forged in the small, everyday choices that demand consistency, sacrifice, and focus. If you want to achieve greatness, you cannot rely on motivation alone because motivation comes and goes. Some mornings you will wake up ready to take on the world, but there will be many days when you wake up tired, distracted, or tempted to do something easier. That's where self-discipline steps in. It's the ability to stay committed to your goal regardless of how you feel in the moment. Think about any top athlete, entrepreneur, or leader you admire. What you see on stage, on the court, or in the spotlight is just the result of thousands of disciplined actions done in private. The basketball player who hits the winning shot didn't just decide to be great in that moment. They practiced that shot hundreds, maybe thousands of times when no one was watching. The business owner who builds a successful company didn't make one lucky decision. They consistently showed up, worked through challenges, and resisted distractions. Self-discipline is not glamorous. It's waking up earlier than you want. It's saying a no to things that feel good in the moment, but hurt you in the long run. And it's pushing yourself to do the work when your mind tries to convince you to take it easy. One of the biggest misunderstandings people have about self-discipline is thinking it's about punishment or making life miserable. That's not the case at all. Self-discipline is actually an act of self-love. It's you telling yourself, I deserve the best, and I'm willing to do what it takes to get it. Champions don't think about what they're missing out on. They think about what they're building toward. They understand that sacrificing short-term comfort leads to long-term reward. A runner might miss a night out with friends to get proper rest for training. A student might choose to study instead of binge watching a show. These are not losses. They're investments in their future. Of course, building self-discipline doesn't happen overnight. It starts small. You can't expect to go from inconsistent habits to perfect discipline in a week. The key is to create daily habits that align with your goals and stick to them no matter what. Start by committing to something manageable. Maybe it's reading 10 pages of a book every day, doing 10 push-ups, or waking up 15 minutes earlier. The point is not how big the action is. The point is proving to yourself that you can follow through. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you build trust in your own word. And that trust becomes the foundation for taking on bigger challenges. A champion's mind understands the difference between feelings and decisions. Feelings are temporary. They fluctuate based on your mood, environment, and even the weather. Decisions, on the other hand, are commitments you make regardless of how you feel. If you rely on feelings to determine your actions, you would always be inconsistent. Champions act on decision. Champions act on decisions, not emotion. If you've decided to work out 5 times a week, you stick to it whether you feel excited or not. If you've decided to spend 2 hours a day on your craft, you do it whether you're inspired or not. Feelings can be negotiated with, decisions cannot. It's also important to realize that self-discipline is not just about saying yes to the right things. It's about saying no to the wrong ones. Distractions are everywhere and many of them look harmless. A quick scroll through social media, a harmless extra hour of TV, one more late night with friends. But these small distractions accumulate over time, pulling you further from your goals. Champions are ruthless about protecting their time and energy. They know their priorities and they filter every decision through this question: will this move me closer to my goal or further away from it? If the answer is a further away, they say no, without guilt and hesitation. Another key element of self-discipline is being able to push through discomfort. The mind will always look for the easiest route, but champions understand that growth happens in discomfort. Every time you resist the urge to quit when things get tough, You strengthen your mental resilience. The first few minutes of a workout might feel exhausting, but if you keep going, you find your rhythm. The first few attempts at learning a skill might feel awkward, but if you keep practicing, you improve. The discomfort you feel today is temporary, but the discipline you build from enduring it lasts forever. Finally, remember that self-discipline isn't a one-time effort. It's a lifelong practice. There will be days when you slip up, when you give in to temptation, or when you miss your goal. Champions don't beat themselves up when that happens. They get back on track immediately. The danger is not in failing once. The danger is in letting that failure become a habit. Self-discipline means recommitting every single day, no matter what happened yesterday. The mindset is simple. I will keep showing up until I get there. If you want to train your mind like a champion, make self-discipline your priority. It's the anchor that keeps you steady when life gets stormy, the engine that drives you forward when motivation runs out, and the silent partner that turns your dreams in reality. Champions don't wait for the perfect moment. They create it through consistent, disciplined action. If you can master yourself, there is nothing in this world that can stop you from winning. When you train your mind like a champion, the ability to embrace discomfort is not just a skill. It becomes your competitive advantage. Most people shy away from the hard stuff. They run from anything that pushes them beyond their comfort zone because it feels unpleasant, unfamiliar, and even threatening. But champions lean into it. They see discomfort not as a wall to avoid, but as a gateway to transformation. The truth is, the greatest growth, the most powerful breakthroughs, and the deepest character development happen when you're uncomfortable. When you make peace with discomfort, you open a door to levels of resilience, grit, and mental toughness that most people will never know. Think about athletes training for the Olympics. Every day, they push their bodies to the point of exhaustion. Their muscles ache, their lungs burn, and sometimes they want to quit. But they don't see that pain as punishment. They see it as progress. That's because they've trained their minds to associate discomfort with growth. They understand that each uncomfortable rep, each early morning, each sacrifice is building something inside them that will pay off later. This mindset doesn't happen by accident. It's a conscious choice, repeated daily, to endure what others avoid. In your own life, discomfort might not look like running sprints until your legs give out, but it will still challenge you. It could be the awkwardness of public speaking, the fear of starting a new business, the mental strain of learning a new skill, or the unease of having a tough conversation. In every one of those moments, your brain will send you signals to stop, to retreat into safety. That's your survival instinct at work. But when you train your mind like a champion, you learn to override that instinct. You tell yourself, I can handle this. I'm built for this. This is where I grow. The problem is that most people never get to experience on the other side of discomfort because they quit too early. They quit too early. They dip their toes into the unknown, feel the sting of uncertainty, and immediately retreat. Champions, on the other hand, develop endurance. Not just physical endurance, but mental endurance. They can sit in discomfort longer than anyone else because they practice doing it. And the more they do it, the more they realize discomfort isn't the enemy. It's the training ground for greatness. Embracing discomfort doesn't mean you enjoy it in the moment. Let's be clear. Champions still feel the struggle, the fatigue, the fear. But they built the mental muscle to keep going anyway. They understand that their comfort zone is a trap. It keeps them safe, yes, but it also keeps them small. Growth requires stretching, and stretching requires tension. Without tension, you stay the same. There's also a key shift in perspective that happens when you learn to embrace discomfort. You start to welcome challenges rather than dread them. You stop seeing obstacles as threats and start viewing them as opportunities to sharpen yourself. When you adopt this champion's mindset, failure stops being something to fear. It becomes feedback. Every misstep is simply a lesson that moves you closer to your goal. Discomfort becomes proof that you're on the right track, because nothing worth achieving comes without it. Another reason champions embrace discomfort is because they understand the concept of delayed gratification. Most people want the reward now. They want the win, the recognition, the success without enduring the process. But champions know that the process, the grind, the sacrifice, the sweat, is where the real transformation happens. They train their minds to think long-term. They're willing to endure short-term pain for long-term gain. They see discomfort as an investment, not a punishment. One of the most powerful ways to build this mindset is through intentional exposure to discomfort. This means actively seeking out situations that challenge you. It could be waking up earlier than you want to, taking on a project you're not entirely sure you can handle, or saying yes to something that scares you. Every time you do this, you teach your mind that you can survive and thrive in uncomfortable situations. Over time, what used to feel intimidating becomes normal. That's how you expand your capacity. It's also important to recognize that embracing discomfort isn't just about achieving external success. It's about internal transformation. Every time you push through discomfort, you build confidence in yourself. You develop proof that you are stronger than you thought. That confidence carries into every area of your life, making you bolder, more decisive, and more resilient. Champions understand that the mind can be trained just like the body. The more you expose it to stress, challenge, and discomfort, the stronger it gets. And just like physical training, you need consistency. You can't expect to embrace discomfort once and become mentally tough for life. You have to make it a habit, a daily practice. Over time, your tolerance for discomfort will grow, and situations that once terrified you will barely faze you. Ultimately, embracing discomfort is about choosing growth over ease. It's about being willing to be temporarily uncomfortable in order to become permanently unshakable. The people who achieve extraordinary things aren't necessarily the most talented or gifted. They're the ones who are willing to suffer a little longer, push a little harder, and risk a little more than everyone else. They've trained their minds to see discomfort not as a signal to stop, but as a sign they're exactly where they need to be. If you want to think like a champion, you have to stop asking, how can I make this easier? And start asking, how can I get stronger? The answer will always involve discomfort, but that's the point. The fire that forges steel is not comfortable, but it's necessary. And if you're willing to step into that fire again and again, you'll come out unbreakable. When it's all said and done, training your mind like a champion is not just about the grind, the hours, or the routines. It's about becoming a version of yourself you never thought was possible. Champions don't rise to the top by accident. They rise because they've decided to take control of the one thing they can truly master, their mind. The body will follow. The skills will develop. The results will show. But it all starts with how you think, how you process challenges, and how you choose to respond when the odds are stacked against you. The truth is, life will test you in ways you cannot predict. The setbacks will not ask for your permission before they arrive. The struggles won't politely knock before barging into your life. You can't stop them from coming, but you can prepare your mind to handle when they do. Champions expect the storm, and instead of folding, they use those storms as fuel. They don't see losses as reasons to quit. They see them as opportunities to sharpen their mindset, to become stronger, wiser, and more resilient. If you want to live like a champion, you have to make a decision every single day that your mindset will not be dictated by temporary feelings. Feelings are fickle. They rise and fall like waves. If you live by them, you'll be up one moment and down the next. Champions don't live by feelings. They live by principles. They commit to their goals on the days they're inspired and on the days they're exhausted. They show up when it's easy and when it's brutally hard. That's what mental training is. It's the ability to be consistent when your emotions scream for comfort. The mind of a champion is built brick by brick, choice by choice. Every small decision matters. The way you speak to yourself matters. The way you interpret failure matters. The way you handle success matters. Champions don't let success make them arrogant or lazy. They don't let failure make them bitter or hopeless. They stay steady, grounded, and focused on the long game. And this long game mentality is what separates them from the rest. Anyone can give their best for a week. Anyone can be disciplined for a month. But champion, they've trained their minds to be disciplined for years, for decades, until it becomes who they are, not just what they do. You have to be willing to get uncomfortable with your own limits. Champions don't just live in the comfort zone. They push past it so often that discomfort becomes their new normal. They understand that growth lives on the other side of struggle. They've trained their minds to see pain not as an enemy, but as a teacher. Every setback has a lesson. Every challenge reveals a strength they didn't know they had. This perspective shift is what keeps them moving forward when most people quit. Training your mind like a champion is also about vision. You can't hit a target you can't see. You have to know where you're going, what you want, and why it matters to you. Without a clear vision, you'll drift. Without a strong why, you'll give up the moment things get tough. Champions know their why so deeply that quitting simply isn't an option. They've already decided long before the challenges came that they would see it through. And because of that decision, they have an unshakable mental foundation. It's also about ownership. Champions don't play the blame game. Don't point fingers. They don't waste energy on what they can't control. They focus entirely on what they can change and take full responsibility for their results. That level of ownership is empowering because it puts the power back in your hands. When you take responsibility, you're no longer a victim of your circumstances. You're a creator of your outcomes. And finally, training your mind like a champion means never stopping. Even when you've reached one goal, you set another. Even when you've improved, you keep searching for the next level. Champions are never done because they understand that the mind is like a muscle. If you stop training it, it weakens. They stay hungry, not because they're dissatisfied, but because they know the journey itself is the reward. So when you step back and look at your life, ask yourself, are you thinking like a champion? Are you building the mental toughness that will carry you through life's hardest battles? Are you committed to the process even when you can't yet see the results? Because in the end, champions are not born, they are built. And the blueprint for building one is available to anyone who's willing to put in the mental work. The choice is yours. The training starts now.